Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Of course, back with the R56 N14 Mini Cooper S engine. Now, we fully rebuilt the block itself in the previous video. I was just waiting on just one bolt for the oil pan. I got that, I've installed that, and I've torqued down all of the oil pan bolts to 12 Newton meters. So the block is now finished. Now, prior to rebuilding the block, I rebuilt the cylinder head fully. So in this video, I want to get the cylinder head on. So that means, of course, the head gasket, cylinder head on, head bolts torqued down, and then I want to get this thing timed up. So, of course, all of the timing chain gear, guides, tensioners, all that good stuff, that can all go on as well. So let's get cracking. Okay, so first things first, I'm just going to give the block face just a quick wipe down, just to make sure there's no oil on here before the new head gasket goes on. And now we can get the block dowels reinstalled as well. Should just push in. There we are. And now we can get our new head gasket. Of course, went with an L-ring head gasket. This is the multi-layer one. So I believe it's 4 layers in total. So there's kind of a top and a bottom layer. Then there's like 2 small layers in total. This is the 0.9mm thickness one, I believe. And yeah, so this is the standard size one. Of course, we didn't have any material taken off the block or the head. So this is going to ensure that we have the standard compression ratio, so nothing's going to be altered. It's just going to be as factory, and yeah, should work quite well. So let's get this thing open. So then, of course, this can only go on one way due to the nature of the block. So I'm just going to drop it in place over the dowels. I'm just going to make sure all of the bolt holes line up, which they do. Make sure we're not missing any holes as well. So there is the new head gasket in place. So I've also gave the head face a good clean off as well. And I guess now you can just lower it into position. And that went on nice and easy. Yeah, we're looking good. So I guess now we can begin installing the new head bolts. Of course, went again with some genuine L-ring head bolts. Of course, these are just one-time only use. They are stretch bolts. So you will have to torque them to a torque setting, and then more than likely a degree angle as well. Now, there is some larger bolts and there is some smaller bolts. What's the situation with this then? Oh, of course, yeah, there is some bolts on the outside, isn't there? That's right, yeah, so there's 3 smaller bolts. 1 here on the outside, and then 2 on the inside of the timing cover. So these are the 3 smaller bolts. So this tiny one here, this one goes on the outside, of course, and these 2 go inside of the timing cover. And there should be 10 more, which are the main 10 head bolts. So let's begin dropping these into position. There we go, all of the head bolts now into position. And we can begin tightening these down now. Okay, and so I've just wound all of the bolts in by hand, haven't started torquing them down yet, but the 10 main head bolts. They are M10 bolts. They have to be torqued down to 30 Newton meters, then a 90-degree rotation, then another 90-degree rotation. The 3 smaller bolts, the one on the outside, that is 30 Newton meters, and then the 2 inside of the timing cover, they are 15 Newton meters, then 90 degrees, and another 90 degrees. These 3 bolts are just M8 bolts. So I'm going to start with the 10 main bolts. I'm just going to torque all of these down to 30 Newton meters. Of course, following the torquing sequence, you start in the middle and spiral outwards. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now these 10 main bolts take an E12 socket. I'm now going to swap to an E10 socket to do the smaller 3 bolts. So as I mentioned, these are both to be torqued down to just 15 Newton meters. There's 1, there's 2, and I can get this one on the outside torqued down as well to 30 Newton meters. There we are. No more torque required on this bolt at all. Obviously still going to do the angle portion of the torquing sequence for these 12 bolts. And now it's time to do the first 90 degrees of the 12 bolts. Switch over to the E10 now for the 2 smaller bolts. So that's the first 90-degree rotation done. Just got to do the exact same once more. There we are then, all of the head bolts now torqued down to spec. Okay then, so I've made a mistake, a pretty big mistake. For those that did notice, well done. For those that didn't notice, I'm going to show you exactly what I've done wrong now. So you guys will have just saw me install the new cylinder head bolts, and what I done was not completely wrong, but it was wrong. So it turns out that the cylinder head bolts need washers on. Who knew that, right? So I think because it's been around 4 or 5 months since I disassembled this engine, I guess, you know, I didn't really remember that the cylinder head bolts needed washers on. And yeah, it turns out they do. I only actually found out this fact when going into the cylinder head diagrams. I just wanted to double check to make sure I had all the additional seals and everything to put this thing back together, and that's when I noticed 10 washers needed for the cylinder head bolts. Now I have rectified this issue, so I have of course removed the cylinder head bolts, the original cylinder head bolts, and yes, they are stretch bolts, so they have to be replaced. So these are the bolts that I just removed. I had to order a new set of L-ring head bolts. Now I've also replaced the head gasket. Whether or not I could have got away with reusing the head gasket, I don't know, but because it has been compressed, you know, is it going to still be good to use again? I don't know, but I didn't really want to take the risk. You know, I don't want to have this thing apart again if I really don't have to. So yeah, we've replaced the head gasket again, we've replaced the head bolts, and this is the part number for the washers. I guess you probably can reuse the original ones, but these were cheap enough anyway just to buy 10 new washers. Now I don't know why the washers didn't come on the new bolts. 3 of the bolts had new washers on, so this one right here and these 2 inside the timing cover, but the 10 main bolts that, you know, provide the majority of the clamping force, they do not have washers on. So yes, do not make the same mistake that I've made. Make sure you either reuse your old washers or just get a set of 10 new washers like I have done. So with that now cleared up, what I've done is actually time the engine up, ready for the installation of the timing chain. Now, you probably noticed a few differences. So the flywheel is in place. That is because to lock the engine up, to lock the crankshaft, you need to have the flywheel in place, because there is a pin that goes in the bottom here. It is this one right here that goes into a hole on the flywheel that will lock the crankshaft in place. The pistons will be they will all actually be at mid-stroke. They'll all be at the same level. That's when you know the crankshaft is in place. And then when it comes to timing the camshafts, how it will look from above is you'll have a set of digits on the intake camshaft, and then you'll also have a set of digits on the exhaust camshaft. These need to be facing upwards. So if these digits are on the other side, you'll probably need to do a full rotation of the camshaft. But then when it comes to installing the camshaft locking tool, it is in two parts right here, secured down by these 3 M6 bolts. And essentially what you need to do is secure the flats on the camshaft inside of the grooves inside this camshaft locking tool here. Now, to get this in the correct position, you will have to obviously orientate the cams. To do this, you just need to get a 27mm wrench, put that on the flats on the camshaft there, and you can, you know, rotate it as you need, and then you can drop your tool into place. Now, let me talk a little bit about this timing toolkit. So pretty much they're all the same. It will come in a case that looks something a little like this. You have a tensioning tool. You'll also have this tool as well, which I believe is for the N12 engine. So if you're doing the N14, don't worry about that. And then of course you'll have the bolts that you need as well. Oh, there's also this, which is, I guess, for extra clamping force. You can install that on there. It's really not needed though, but if you want to use it, feel free. But yeah, really very simple to time this engine up. There's really not a whole lot to it. If you do want to get one of these timing toolkits, I will leave a link down in the description box below. But now we can proceed in getting this timing chain kit installed. Okay then, so when it comes to installing the timing chain kit, this is pretty much everything that you need right here. So of course we have the timing chain itself, we have the bottom gear. This is where it goes onto the crank hub, onto this thing right here. This is the new crank hub bolt. Of course, timing chain guide. We have this top guide here as well, secured in place with these 2 bolts. These are the original bolts. These do not have to be replaced. Pretty much all of the other bolts though have to be replaced. So the 2 camshaft pulley bolts, of course we have the Vanos adjuster pulley. This is the intake pulley, of course. That's the bolt for that. That actually came with that. This is a brand new unit, by the way. I could have, you know, more than likely reused the old unit, but it's got 86,000 miles on, so we just went with a new genuine one. Of course, you need a new bolt for the exhaust pulley as well. This bolt didn't actually come with the timing chain kit, so I had to actually order this direct from BMW. It wasn't much, a couple of pounds, so that needs to be replaced as well. Of course, in the timing chain kit comes with the tensioner as well, so that's new. And then these are the guide bolts. These are the bolts that hold the timing chain guide in place. You don't have to buy these new, but I did decide to do so. If you are going to reuse the old ones, you have to replace the O-rings on them anyway. This one here, this one doesn't actually have an O-ring on. Seems a little bit strange, but yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, we have all new timing chain guide bolts to secure it in place. But yeah, let's get this built up and then we can get it on the engine. Okay, so this is essentially how the timing chain drops into position. So of course the two sections of the guides, they clip together. You slide the timing chain down in between, and then you install the gear onto the bottom, and it should stay in place, allowing you to drop it down through the timing cover. And with a bit of luck, everything should line up. I wonder if I've actually got this the wrong way around. Guess there's only one way to find out. Yeah, I did have it the wrong way around. Of course, there's a hole there for the top timing chain guide bolt. Yeah, everything lines up perfect now. Got the crank hub. I'll slot this into position. There we are. Just pop the timing chain over here for now. It stays in position. Just while I get the crankshaft bolt in position. Now I'll also get the new guide bolts in place as well. And the top one as well. And now I guess I can install the camshaft gears with new bolts. And now I can also get this top guide installed as well with the two original bolts. And here is how we are now looking. The entire timing chain kit is now installed, bar the automatic tensioner. I will be installing that, but I need to torque down all of the bolts first. And when it comes to the two camshaft gear bolts, they need to be torqued down under tension just so that the chain doesn't want to move. And to do that, we have a special tool. It is this thing right here. So we'll screw this into position, put some tension on the chain, and then we, like I said, we can get these two torqued down then. Okay, so let's slide this into position where the automatic tensioner would usually go. I can feel that chain is now under tension. Okay, so now I can begin torquing down all of the bolts. I'm just going to start with the two 8mm for the top timing chain guide. These just have to be torqued down to 8 Newton meters. There we are. And we'll also get the main timing chain guide bolts torqued down as well, all to 25 Newton meters. There's one. There's two. And there's three. Now we'll get the main crankshaft bolt torqued down to 50 Newton meters for the first stage, and then it needs to be torqued down to a further 180 degrees of rotation. So let's do 50 Newton meters first. Nice and easy. And just to make things nice and easy, to do 180 degrees of rotation, we'll put a line. Of course, we know that this will have flipped completely round once the 180 degrees is done. Here goes. Feels wrong putting this much strain on a bolt. should be about it. Let's check. A little bit more. That should do us. Maybe a little bit more. That'll do us. Yep, perfect. And now it's the two camshaft sprocket bolts, which are 20 Newton meters and then 180 degrees of rotation. Of course, 20 Newton meters first. Which isn't a lot for these bolts. And now here comes the fun part, 180 degrees of rotation. Yep, there's one. Perfect. As you can see, just done the same thing again, marked a line vertically with the engine, and 180 degrees is obviously once that line has rotated and again is pointing vertically. So that should now be all of the bolts torqued down, so we should be able to remove this tensioning tool and then we can install the proper tensioner then. I'll just tighten this down with a ratchet. It's a 27mm head, by the way. Now we can torque it down to 65 Newton meters. There we are. And now we can get the timing chain toolkit removed. So of course, just these three 10mm into the head. And then the crankshaft locking pin, that can also be removed. There we are. And now I guess we can rotate the engine a couple of times just to make sure everything is moving smoothly and make sure that it stays in time. I'm just going to apply some assembly lube as well to the camshaft lobes just to make sure that they are not making contact dry. Right then, now is for the moment of truth. Yep, everything seems to be moving nicely, which is good. So then after rotating the engine a good few times, as you can see, it is all still in time. So the top timing tools for the camshaft, they've dropped straight on, along with the crankshaft locking pin. That went straight in as well. Of course, the camshafts are orientated in the correct position with the markings on the top pointing up. Perfect. Now then, I guess it's time to reinstall the rocker cover, and for that I have a brand new genuine O-ring rocker cover, which of course comes with all new gaskets. So if you are reusing your old rocker cover, just obviously replace the outer gasket along with the 2 inner gaskets for the spark plug tubes as well. And I'm also going to apply a small amount of sealant. So again, I have this rhinestone seal to the edges here of these half moons, because if you are going to get a rocker cover gasket leak, it is going to be from these 2 areas here. But yeah, we don't need to go crazy with this stuff, just a very small amount, just a tiny blob here and another tiny blob there. Oh, I did also again apply some more assembly lube to the camshaft lobes, also the hydraulic lifters as well. You can never apply too much assembly lube, but yeah, let's get this dropped into position. Now we'll begin installing all of our bolts. I've just opted to use the original bolts, but I have gave them a lick of paint just to make things look a bit nicer. So these 2 longer bolts, they will go in the end here. There is this odd looking bolt, which is actually a bolt and then a nut on the top. I believe that goes in the center at the front of the rocker cover, but the other bolts should all be the same. And again, we are missing a bolt. And I actually know the reason why we're missing a bolt this time, because the previous rocker cover to this had actually been replaced, and I guess they somehow lost a bolt. So yeah, we're going to have to install all but 1 bolt, and I'll have to install that at a later date. So I guess we will make that this middle one at the back here. We'll get these 2 in the middle installed. Had the exact same problem with the sump. Should all just be 10 mils. So with all but 1 bolt now installed, I'll get them all torqued down to 10 Newton meters. So then, with the rocker cover now installed and the bolts torqued down, I'm going to go ahead and install the front crankshaft oil seal, which again we've gone with genuine O-ring, and it should, yes it does come with the tool to install it. So just exactly the same as the rear seal. I'm going to remove the seal itself from the tool, lube this up with some oil on the inner lip and the outer lip, put the tool back on, and then slide this over the end of the crankshaft here, and then we can tap this in place. So it's nice and lubed up. We can begin tapping this off of the tool. About to remove this completely now, yeah. I'm just going to make sure that's uniform all of the way around. Yeah, that feels Nice and uniform in there now. Should be seated correctly. And just make sure that the crankshaft turns fine against it. Yep, seems to. So then with that now done, that is the bare engine now fully reassembled. So I think I'm going to leave things here. This is going to be the end of part 2. The next part, part 3, will be me pretty much reassembling everything back onto the engine. And once that is done, we can then of course get this back into the car and hopefully fire this thing up for the first time. But what have we done in this video? So of course we have installed the cylinder head first and foremost. The first time we done it the incorrect way. Of course we forgot the washers on the head bolts, so I took the head off, replaced the head gasket. Whether or not I needed to be done or not, I don't know, but yeah, I just went ahead and replaced the head gasket again anyway. Of course reinstalled the head, installed new head bolts with new washers, obviously torqued those all down, and then we proceeded in installing the entire timing chain kit. So complete brand new timing chain kit, genuine iWiz timing chain kit. You don't want to skimp when it comes to a timing chain kit. We of course timed the engine up using the timing tool set, and after we installed the entire timing chain kit, we removed that timing locking tool set, rotated the engine a couple of times, and then rechecked the timing. Like I said, everything is bang on. So once I knew that, the rocker cover went back on and the front main oil seal as well. And yeah, we really are starting to get a move on with this thing now. In the next part, when it comes to reinstalling everything back onto the engine, it should be pretty much straightforward. I do have a lot of new items to go back on this thing. I've pretty much refreshed everything, so yeah, there shouldn't be any rusty items going back on this thing apart from possibly the exhaust. But yeah, everything else is going to be pretty much brand new going back onto this thing. And yeah, I just cannot wait to get this thing now fully reassembled and get it back in the car. And yeah, like I said, hopefully fire this thing up for the first time. But yeah, guys, like I said, I am going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it. Hopefully it's been easy enough to follow along if you have been, you know, doing this yourself. I want to thank all of you for watching. Please remember to give this video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you have not already done so, and I will see you all in the next one.